This is Zarina, host of the Grownlearn podcast. I have a wonderful guest here for the podcast for this episode today. He's been with us a few times, not for a while, but in the meantime, he's done amazing work. And we're coming right on time for the launch of his new book. And the book is called The Better Way to Win, Winning During a Time of Crisis. I'm welcoming Mike Amato. Hi, Mike.
Thank you, Zarina. Nice to see you again.
Nice to have you back again. Let me give you a very brief introduction of your background. So for anybody else who doesn't know about you or hasn't heard your previous episodes on the podcast. So Mike, you were chief in sales in Barclays and in Santander in London and in the US. You were on the board of another digital bank and you led a few companies through transforming their cultures. And so you wrote a book of how to deal with these times of transformation by focusing on culture. I am only supposing that it's revolving around culture, but as you told me in our talk before we started recording, you've had so many questions and delved into so many aspects of your previous work. So I'm really curious of what went into the book and what is it really about?
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Zarina, for that introduction. It's always nice to be here with you. I really support your work, and it's been fun to work with you and know you and watch you evolve over the years. So thank you again for having me on your podcast. So as you said, the book is called The Better Way to Win, and it's about leading in a time of crisis. So it uses my experiences when I was at Barclays. I was the head of global product and distribution. So all the branches and all the products from mortgages to investments and current accounts in every channel from telephony, digital, and then branch channels throughout the Barclays global footprint. So when I first had taken on that role at Barclays, we had a pretty major crisis. And the experience of recovering from the crisis is the backdrop of this book, talking about what happened, why it happened, and how we turned an underperforming bank, to say the least, to the top highest performing bank in the world. So what happened and how did that go? Well, that's kind of the backdrop, but the lessons learned apply, and it's why I call it Leading in a Time of Crisis as the subtitle, because the lessons that we learned apply to any organization in crisis. A lot of times when you say a book is about culture, people yawn and say, oh yeah, we know about culture, and then they tune out. Well, it's not just about culture. It is, but it's not. What I mean by that is that right now with the post-pandemic, almost every organization's in crisis. Going back to work, going back to the office, leaders are finding out that the power equation has shifted. They're finding out that workers don't want to go back to the office. They don't want to spend an hour commuting each way. They want to work at home. They like working at home. Now, some people do want to get in there, so there's kind of a conflict. And so leaders are seeing that the old ways of managing just simply don't work today for the generations that we're now trying to lead, and then also the post-pandemic world. So using this story as a backdrop is a great way to talk about leadership styles, the ecosystem that leaders are responsible for creating at work, and how to be more relevant in today, because you could argue, as I mentioned, almost every company's in a time of crisis right now, trying to figure out how to work going forward. So that's a little bit about what the book is about.
Well, I think I did a disservice announcing that you actually launched the book today. Today is the launch of the book and of the website, and the website carries the title of the book. It's called thebetterwaytowin.com.
Right.
Leading in time of crisis is the slogan. Yesterday, I had a talk with somebody who was a part of the first wave of the Great Resignation and of the Great Resignation of the pandemic. And so we talked about the fact that 90% of, she's doing some research on resignation, especially with women. She said 90% of women are ready to leave their jobs in the coming 5 years. And that's yet another crisis that we can put on top of people not wanting to come back to work. So it's just adding on to the challenges that leaders have these days. And so how do you approach in the book these challenges? I know it's a whole book that you have to talk about, but what are some of the key takeaways of the book to approach such challenges?
Yes, and I, by the way, I love the question because I can give a book review, but while that's interesting, I'm not sure there's a broader point in that the message in the book can be applied in many ways. So I actually appreciate the question, Serena. So when you talk about 90% of women are looking at changing jobs or leaving work for, within 5 years, I give you another data point. Just kind of think about something. During the pandemic, Microsoft was interviewed. They asked the executives, "What did you think about the company's response during the pandemic?" And the executives said, "Oh, we've really come together. I'm so proud of our team. We've thrived during this pandemic. Not just survived, we thrived." Well, then they got a consultant to do an employee engagement survey. What they found was that 41% of the workers at Microsoft said that they felt overworked and overwhelmed, and 39% said they were actively looking for a job somewhere else. So now think about that. Leadership said, "Oh, we've thrived." Workers in numbers. Now, when you think about what would your percentage of regretted turnover, regretted attrition of the workforce of your top players, you would want it to be 0 to 5%. Of all the entire organization, you'd want it to be, you certainly want it to be less than 10 to 12% turnover. Here's 39% of the people at Microsoft saying that they're actively looking for another job. This is a crisis, and leadership in talking about thriving is disconnected from the reality of the workers. So when you describe the challenges people are facing, 90% of women looking for new roles, what they're saying is the Great Resignation is that my leadership has not given me something to care about. I don't feel connected to the purpose. We talk about in the boardroom. I was on the board, as you mentioned, on Santander, and then Tandem Bank, a digital bank. We always talked about diversity and inclusion, and how do we create a culture of diversity and inclusion, and lots of words. But the reality is, those things where you have a diverse workforce and inclusive environment are all embedded in the ecosystem that we create. And the ecosystem we create needs to, a good leader needs to appeal to the heart and soul of the workers and give them something to care about. People don't want to follow leaders now, they want to follow the purpose. So when you hear this, women are saying, in this particular example you gave, what they're saying is that the company doesn't make me feel any attachment to what they're doing, so I'll look elsewhere. So this is the call to leaders, and this is a call to people who are not happy at their work anymore. Mm-hmm. It's the worker, the power equation has shifted. Workers now have the chance to go work wherever they want because they can work remotely. So talent is no longer an entitlement of leadership, and leadership needs to change so they can create a culture where people feel engaged with the purpose, not with leaders' conversations around virtue signaling about what they care about diversity and inclusion, when in reality, they haven't really done much about it for the last 25 years.
Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, there was a very reputable magazine that came up with a study about the Great Resignation, and they gave as a top 3 reason, if not the number 1 reason, was actually the lack of meaning. So people are suddenly starting to awaken, and they realize my life is now precious, important. I want to give meaning to my life, and that's what you're saying. Purpose and meaning are very interchangeable especially in a work-related setting. All right. So, okay. So what are some of the new issues that you've been dealing with in the past year, since you've been consulting some large clients that you just took on? Is there anything new apart from your previous observations on the previous financial crisis that you went through, and you led a cultural transformation? Is there anything new that you're observing now that leaders are facing?
Yes, and thank you. I wanted to continue with the question because, I am doing mentoring to executives in Austria, the United Kingdom, United States, New York, and Seattle. So various people around the world, and where it is less important than what's happening. And what's really interesting is that what we're seeing is that there's an old saying that culture is to as customers are to products, culture is to employees. So what that means is that you can no longer, what we're seeing is that the leaders in the companies no longer they're no longer entitled to say that workers should listen to them and do what they say just because they've got the position or the title. Now how that manifests itself and what does that mean is that what I'm coaching the leaders that I work with to understand that they themselves have to they have to ensure that they say what they mean and mean what they say. They can no longer make these broad phrases like employees are our greatest resource when in fact they spend 90% of their time talking about cost cuts, and what's the greatest expense are people. So they spend a lot of time reducing the workforce. Meanwhile, in front of the workers, they say, hey, employees are our greatest resource. So comments like that don't help them get connected. So the idea is what's missing is that connection. And so I'm mentoring leaders on creating that connection. And what I call that connection is an employee value proposition. So with customers, we create products, and the products create a value proposition. And there's different ways to do it with branding, or it's a luxury product, or it's a commodity like a pen or pencil, and price is the key determinant. What leaders are facing today is that with the Great Resignation, price has become the only answer they have to people leaving. So they're raising their costs. They're paying sign-in bonuses to other employees. To get them to, pardon me, not other employees, to employees that they're recruiting, and they're reduced to making employment a value proposition based on price. That means the company's thinking of the talent as a commodity. Well, so how do they stop this madness, and how can they create an employee value proposition that says we need to think about this and look at a product for the employees? Why should they work here? And these are questions that a lot of times leaders don't ask. Leaders don't ask, am I relevant? Do I matter? I talked to a group of leaders one time, said, are you guys relevant? They didn't know how to, what do you mean if they're relevant? Yes, I'm the head of blah, blah, blah. But are you relevant? Of course I'm relevant. I have this responsibility. Are you relevant? Do you matter to the people that you're working with? Well, yeah, because I can fire them. Wow, that is not a very good employee value proposition. So we want to redefine this relevance. We want to create an employee value proposition that says, what's in it for the employee? What is the product we're offering them as a company? Why should they work here? And one of the answers has to be relevant leadership. Another has to be a purpose that's worthy. And third is you got to make them feel a certain way, make them feel attached to the organization, make them feel something. Now it's about appealing to heart, not just the minds of the workers. So those are some of the things that people are seeing, and that's the way we're starting to talk about it, which is looking at employees as if they were customers and creating a value proposition that helps provide what they want to get from work, not what the company needs from them.
Now I am thinking of the next upcoming crisis that is already looming everywhere with high inflation and shortages in supply chain. So that's putting yet another pressure on the company. So my question is now, do you think that leaders are going to be able to really take the focus that maybe that for a minute period of time they had the chance to put onto their employees, but now they're distracted again to the next looming crisis? So it's a constant loop of urgencies. What do they do?
I just love it. I mean, you are such a good interviewer, and I love where your mind goes on this. So this is one of the central themes that I talk about in the book, is that the idea is that crisis, it takes a crisis for leadership to change. And the question is just like with us with our health, right? If you catch a disease or an illness, that's when you say, gosh, I need to change my diet, or I need to stop smoking, or I better watch other things in my lifestyle. That's when we need to react. Well, what's happening, what's leading in this time of crisis is that it's a wonderful opportunity, not a terrible opportunity. It's a wonderful opportunity to change because you have nothing to lose. If leaders act in the same ways that they've acted and look at this upcoming crisis as a way that we need to somehow appeal to shareholders by driving costs down, trying to get any sort of revenue that we can get. And we've got to make sure that we don't slip or miss a beat in terms of our earnings. That's wrong. I tell you that, Mike, how can that be wrong? What do you mean we can't worry about earnings at a time when we've got all these pressures? No, earnings and the financial results are actually the output. We should have done it a long time ago, where we look at the input being things like what's our appeal to customers? Why do customers care about us? What's our appeal to employees? What do employees care about us? How do we measure management? We've got managers with all different ways to interpret the company's vision. How do we really hold managers accountable for representing the very best of what we want to accomplish? What's our quality, compliance, and auditing relationship with regulators? If you get all those things right, that plus that plus that equals higher financial performance. And I show the numbers in this book. What happened when we did that at Barclays? Example: we had employee engagement of only 64%. Now, listen, global high performing norm was 86%, and Barclays was at 64%. We had a big scandal, got exposed on national TV about mis-selling and all sorts of issues. So we had to do something. My team was 30,000 people. 30,000 people answered the employee engagement surveys. Were only 64%. I'd never seen lower engagement scores. We launched a transformation program that put profitability to the side and let's use the inputs being those other drivers, as I mentioned: customers, employees, management metrics, and quality. We looked at how to bring all those up. We moved employee engagement not from 64%, not just to 86% global high performing norm. It actually moved to 92%, Zarina, the top
Impressive.
not only of every bank in the world, but the top of any retailer in the world. Now, what did that mean? That means customer complaints. We had engaged people talking to customers, selling to customers in new ways that met the quality standards. To this day, the UK retail bank from Barclays is the only financial institution in Europe to voluntarily have pulled PPI before the regulators got upset about it. It was a poor product. We took it, what I call, off the shelf because we were honoring our values. So what happened was, the result was we far exceeded our financial performance. So that's what a crisis can do. It can force you to change your view. What do leaders today need to do? Change their view? I get financial pressures are high, but they need to look at creating a formula for creating better financial results. And it is happy customers, happy employees, better management who are doing their job and are relevant, all with quality, meaning that they honor their values. And when you do that, it's almost alchemy. You create higher profits, actually higher profits than your budgets would even you dare to dream with your budgets. We exceed our budget every single year once this happened. So that's a very long answer, but it gave me a chance to talk about there is a better way to win. And this is the formula. And now is the time for leaders to do it. If not, don't worry. The next crisis will get it until you're tired of crisis, until you're tired of things happening, whatever's coming down the line, because there's always going to be something. Then you'll change one day. And when you change, you're going to see the alchemy of all this coming together in ways that right now they're probably afraid to try.
I remember the first talk that you told me about the whole scandal on the BBC, and you said that the first thing you did was have a questionnaire, honest feedback by the employees about their leadership, but it was not the regular employee feedback questionnaire, but it was something different. I can't remember, but you asked them different questions. And so what is now the first thing you do, the first thing you advise your clients on transformation? What is the first thing they need to do now?
Yeah, exactly. So number one is understand. So you need to get insights. Now, start from a principle, and the principle says, if you or what do workers want? There's a belief that workers are quitting now because they don't care about work anymore. There's no loyalty. I don't think that's true. What people want to do is meaningful work. They're just saying, I want to work someplace where it's meaningful. Number two, I want to feel like I'm a valued part. My contribution matters. So I want to work where there's meaningful purpose. I want to feel like I'm contributing. My role somehow matters. I don't want to feel unimportant. And finally, I want to be recognized for this outstanding contribution when it happens. So when you think about that and say, what do people want? First step is to understand what they have today. And what you do need to create a burning platform and use the words of your workforce to describe. So why are people quitting? Ask them. What we did was use a deck of picture cards. Do you understand the company's vision? Does your boss explain it? You know, the typical kind of engagement questions. We said, take these picture cards and show us the pictures, the 4 cards that identify your job. We got some amazing feedback when people say, here are these cards. And we'd have them tell the story why they chose that card. Now what we do is we do plus that together some insights, which cards people are choosing. But we're also able to. I'm on the chair of the advisory board for a company called Brands with Values, and Brands with Values has created a culture decoder that measures the values in the organization. So think about if you want insights for how people feel about the workplace, you want to understand what they think is important. So in 7 minutes, we can do surveys for companies of 100,000 people. There's no limit. All 100,000 people can respond digitally to 3 questions. It's just 3 questions. Number one is there's 99 words on a word wall. This is my phone. And 99 words on a word wall. Touch 10 that are the most important to you. Done that? Next screen comes up. 99 words on a word wall. Touch 10 that say, what does the company stand for? What are the company values? Third question comes up. Now, 99 words on the word wall. What are touch 10 that that show you what the values are that are displayed every day? What values do you see? And then the team creates a report, 45, 46 pages long, that says, here is what we got. Here is by gender, by geography, by level in the company, by any sorting that you want to do. And here is the results, all anonymously, but they do give we do give the report diced any way you want that show the gaps. And what you're watching for is an underperforming company has a gap between what people think is important to them and the values that they see displayed every day. They see gaps between what the company says is important to them and the values they see on display every day. Those gaps create either a lack of meaning for the employee or an indicator of hypocrisy by the leadership team. So then there's plans then to close those gaps. So these insights, Serena, are the first thing to do to say, from the voice of the employees, we have a situation that creates a burning platform, and our transformation will be a journey from this to something else. And that's the very first step.
Mm-hmm. Is your group on LinkedIn called Punks and Pinstripes? Is it connected to the advisory work that you do?
Only tangentially. So that's connected to one of the things I do is give keynote speeches, and I'm working with a group of the founders of Punks and Pinstripes. And what that group is slightly different, but what they do is to say we need to help leaders understand that innovation is massively important. Everything I'm talking about is innovating the way we lead. There's also innovating the way that we create products. There's innovating to a digital world. And yet innovation seems to be something that traditional leadership stifles. Well, Punks and Pinstripes is a group that says every punk in an organization who can innovate needs a godfather, needs somebody in pinstripes to protect them and allow them to innovate and create something. Most organizations today are in survival mode. They're just trying to survive because they're worried about making money for the shareholders. We want to stop that madness and say, you'll make more money for the shareholders if you will allow innovation to occur. And to do that, you need a culture of innovation. So that is a group of us that are doing keynote speeches around how to bring that part to life. So it's slightly different than what Punks and Pinstripes are, but that's what we do. And so for anybody out there saying, look at your company, you want to have a leadership meeting, you want to have a group of people come together and understand how can we improve innovation in this company. That's what we talk about. And the 4 of us all have a different experience, a different perspective on what we bring to those conversations. with different backgrounds. So that's what Punks and Pinstripes is.
Wonderful. So anybody interested can contact you also on the website of the book that is again called The Better Way to Win. Could you please show once again what the book looks like, and congratulations again on your launch date.
Thank you very much, Zarina. It's an honor to be here with you on the launch date. So this is the book, Better Way to Win, Leading in a Time of Crisis. It's on Amazon in any country, digital and hardcover. So you can order it there. It's actually anywhere books are sold. So you can buy this at Barnes & Noble or whatever your favorite bookstore is, and we'll get this to you. So that's the book. You can also buy it on my website. Website's thebetterwaytowin.com. And the website describes what I do and describes, not only you can buy the book there, describes the backstory to the book, but also describes my speaking and my coaching, my mentoring. Gosh, if I can help leaders one at a time address these questions that we've talked about, we will make the lives better for so many workers. Likewise, if I can help leadership teams create a transformation, we can make workplace a much more better. We can stop the turnover, the Great Resignation for these companies, and they will realize the financial benefits of paying attention to these other drivers of business performance, of the ecosystem that's necessary to succeed. So
Mike,
all that.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
That's all that's there.
Thank you so much. Really, I appreciate you joining me today. And I perceive it as a special day, your special day too, for the release of this book. Hope you come again to Grow and Learn. And it's really a privilege for me to talk to somebody who genuinely cares about transforming cultures across corporate America and the corporate world. Thank you, Mike.
Absolutely. And there will be a day, Zarina, when we work together on a transformation in Europe. I know it's coming, and I'd be delighted to work with you, and we could bring this to life and bring this methodology. You'll see it firsthand, and it will be a pleasure and honor to work with you when that happens.
Thank you, Mike.